in 25 more years, or my kids will down the road.
So these trees being cut can end up in baby diapers or stand up as utility poles. But one of the largest timberland owners in the state is Jamestown, the same folks who own Ponce City Market in Atlanta. There is a process that uses trees to make a product that's stronger than concrete and helps keep carbon dioxide out of the air. I met Troy Harris, who manages the Timberland and Wood Products division of Jamestown.
So Jamestown's a $12 billion commercial real estate company. Assets under management all over the United States and now even in Europe. We own Ponce City Market here in Atlanta, which we're here at today, where our mass timber building is. But we also own some other iconic buildings like Chelsea Market in New York City, which is a lot like Ponce. And probably our most iconic building is One Times Square, where we actually own the New Year's Eve ball and are responsible for dropping the ball every year.
So what gets this real estate company into ownership of timberland?
Our investments in timberland are a lot like the way that we're thinking about sustainability with our buildings, is that, 10, 15 years ago, we were thinking, okay, commercial real estate is interesting, but how do we diversify away from that? What are other things we can do besides office and retail environments? And we quickly landed on timber because of its sustainability nature of the investment itself. We really liked that, but it's also something very different than commercial real estate. It's not exposed to the same things like you can imagine, like with what we're going through right now with the office environment. That struggles in times like these, but timber, trees don't care. They're out there growing biologically and doing what they're doing. It's a nice diversification for investors.
And the thing that gets me about what you guys have figured out to do with the wood, it's hard for me to wrap my head around the fact that the wood you're using is as strong, if not stronger, than concrete and steel. How can that be?
Yeah, I think we get the question about how can we build something so strong out of wood and do things that we do normally with concrete and steel. And the concept is pretty simple if you think about it. You've probably been in an old building, maybe an old lodge. We used to build with wood all the time with big, large timbers, if you will. Mass timber is just different. It's taking smaller trees, cutting and lumber like we use all the time, and I'd like to call it plywood on steroids. It's taking the 2x4s, the 2x6s, and we lay them out one way, and then we come back and lay them a different way. So the fibers and the way that tree runs and the way that lumber runs basically stacks upon itself. You glue that together and condense it, and it becomes very, very strong. What we love about the material is it can be as strong as concrete and steel, but it's a third lighter. And so that has some really interesting applications as well, not just for how you can build, where you can build, but for transportation logistics. It's just a much more sustainable material to be building with.
Well, and it sucks in carbon, am I right?
Yes, that's the beauty of it. I mean, I think what we really love about the material, and where we think that mass timber really is kind of where we're going next with building and construction, is that, concrete and steel, the built environment, if you will, where we live, work, and play, really accounts for 40% of the world's global emissions. It's actually more than 40% in the United States. But of that 40% of our emissions, 11% is how we build things. And so if we can substitute the way we build using high carbon emitters like concrete and steel, and substitute that for timber, which is being sustainably managed here in Georgia. So we grow a lot of trees. We're the #1 forestry state in the nation. If we can substitute and use wood, that's a good thing, because if you remember back in science class, you learned that trees take in carbon dioxide and they give off oxygen, and that's an important thing. But the carbon part of that equation, and carbon dioxide, is the building block for that tree. And so it's storing the carbon in that tree. If we use it and turn it into lumber, a long-lived wood product, and then turn that into mass timber, not only are we taking carbon into the air and doing a good thing, but we're also creating a carbon vault with these mass timber buildings. And so we're storing that carbon away for 100 years or the life cycle of that building. And then as long as a forester, I'm replanting and managing sustainably, we're continuing that cycle over and over and making a big difference in what we do.
Mass timber is already a game changer in the world. There's good reason. Jamestown calculated the difference of what the carbon emissions would be if it built this structure with concrete and steel versus using wood. They found a 75% reduction in carbon emissions by using mass timber instead of concrete and steel.
Wood is already the new thing. Countries, Europe, Canada have embraced mass timber. It's caught on pretty strong in the Pacific Northwest. And so what you see in those countries is a very active and thriving mass timber building industry where people are using this product all the time. What I see the future is kind of interesting in that in our building, you'd be surprised to know that when we went out to market to price the building, we would have been able to do this project cheaper if we'd have sourced it from Austria. Now that doesn't make any sense. When you're a timberland owner in Georgia and you know how sustainable our story is, it made no sense to Jamestown to buy a building kit, if you will, and source it from Austria and have it delivered to Atlanta, Georgia. That didn't make any sense. The problem with the supply chain right now is there aren't enough mass timber plants in the United States. There's a big one in Dothan, Alabama that's doubling its size, and there's one currently in Arkansas. And so I think what I see the future of mass timber being is that we will build more of these mass timber plants, hopefully one in Georgia soon, that will make this product. And the more of those we have, I think the more people will be able to use mass timber in their construction and design. And developers are just loving this product. It's not only is it sustainable, but it's gorgeous.
The building goes together like puzzle pieces. They are all cut to order and lifted into place and designed to fit together perfectly. This also cuts back on emissions since there isn't a lot of truck traffic and machinery work taking place.
It's just so gorgeous. We love the character of Southern Yellow Pine is unlike any of the other mass timber buildings that people are building with. So if we had gotten this from Austria or someplace else, it would come as a white wood and it would be very clean and modern looking, which a lot of people like. But I just love the aesthetic of this just gorgeous Southern Yellow Pine with its really golden grains. Like everybody is loving that part of it, and experiencing it the most.
So you're just gonna leave it unfinished?
Yeah, and so like why ruin and spoil greatness? And so much like Pond City Market, and it's quirky and it's chippy and the floors squeak and moan, like why mess with that? So yeah, for the building.
But you don't have to put a finish on this. It's that durable.
Some people put a finish on it just for protection, but we're gonna let it just be itself. And we want it to. We think that people, when they touch it, that's the thing, everybody that comes into the building wants to touch it and feel it.
Yeah, I did.
I have a bet with some of my friends that like people will touch it and feel it like in art museums that you go to with statues. I think it will patina in certain areas by people touching it over the years, but I think we just really want to embrace that.
It's so smooth, there's no underneath jagged, but that's part of the processing.
Yeah, the part of the process, it's all finished off site and delivered here like this. It all comes like a Lego kit, remember. It's all ready to be pre-assembled. So it shows up on site. They put it together just piece after piece after piece, but it is all manufactured off site, ready to